Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 345. We're doing our Week 8 NFL picks against the spread for the 2021 season. Joined once again by Jacob Kamiker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you, and how's your Week 7?
I'm doing great. My Week 7, it was another like just below 500 week. I went 5-7-1. The good news is we closed the week with a couple wins on the Colts and the Seahawks, which the Seahawks was horrifying at the end because of the Geno Smith being, he gets the ball on the 25-yard line. You're like, all right, so long as he doesn't throw a pick six. Then he goes backwards 19 yards in 3 plays, and it's fourth down. You're like, all right, either a safety or a pick six hurts me here. But we dodged that one. That ended up being good. The late slate on Sunday really killed me. I don't think I won a single one of those games. So hopefully we'll have a little bit better luck and some better handicapping on my part this week. But I feel like we've been getting better as the season goes along. We've just gotten seriously unlucky in some circumstances. So I think we're in for a really good week here soon.
Yeah, for the Seahawks game, I don't know about you, but I was counting down the seconds until they got to 120, because that means if they had the turnover, that means the Saints will be able to kneel down. And so once they hit 120, I'm like, all right, we're safe. And then he kept taking sacks and going backward. I'm like, oh no. And I thought he was gonna take a safety, which would have lost our pick in the super contest. Luckily they hung on, but that last throw, I thought that was getting pick six the way he threw it. Like I said, I tweeted out, I said that my life flashed before my eyes. But yeah, we've had some bad luck. Like the Redskins game against the Packers, they outgained the Packers. They averaged more yards per play. They got to the Green Bay 23, 27, 1, 3, and 12 and scored on none of those drives. I just don't know how you like those score. They kick 2 field goals or get 1 touchdown. Then they cover. And they had a touchdown negated. They had 2 touchdowns negated by replay. They had Terry McLaurin dropped a touchdown, and then Ricky Seals-Jones had he was interfered with in the end zone. They didn't call it. It was just so weird. It's so frustrating how that game went. But yeah, I'm hearing you. So I think I was 6-7 overall. 3-2 in the super contest though, so at least that's something. But I'm liking this week 8 card a lot. It's almost a full slate. We only have 2 teams on bye, the Raiders and the Ravens. So I'm looking forward to discussing it with you. I also have my pick of the month this week, so hopefully we're on the right side of that game, or the same side of that game. So before we get to the Thursday night game, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would help us out a lot. Let's get right to it. The first game, Packers at Cardinals. So this line opened up Cardinals minus 3.5, and it shot up to 6 when it was announced that Davante Adams is probably not going to play this game. And then a couple hours before we started recording, it was announced that Allen Lazard probably not going to play this game either. So the Packers are down several receivers. So this is why the line has moved up so much. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Cardinals here because the Packers are without their top 2 receivers. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling, we don't know if he's going to play either. He's on IR. He's eligible to come back at any point. He's got a hamstring injury. So, those you're not going to really know until right before kickoff, unless they activate him, say, tomorrow, whether or not he's going to play. So I don't like the fact that they have to go up against this Cardinals defense without possibly their top 3 receivers. I know Aaron Rodgers can turn guys into solid weapons, and they were actually 6-0 without Davante Adams the last 2 years, which is a bizarre stat to me. I didn't look into who they've played in those games, but I just don't see it happening against the Cardinals, because I know the Cardinals' weakest point on their defense is their secondary. So, Rodgers is going to be able to throw a little bit on them, but is he going to be able to keep pace with Kyler Murray and this Arizona offense? That I'm less sure about, because the Packers are not as strong as they usually are in the secondary, because Jair Alexander is on IR. So they're not going to have their top cornerback in this game. Eric Stokes has been great, the first-round rookie, but they don't have a lot across from him. Shannon Sullivan and Kevin King have been playing. And Kevin King, as we've seen many times, can get burnt in coverage, and Shannon Sullivan is fine, but you want better guys to go up against the DeAndre Hopkinses, the AJ Green, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk. They have 4 great weapons and Zach Ertz. So I think Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are going to find a way to move the ball on the Packers. This line's a little bit higher than I wanted it to be, but I still think that the Cardinals are the right side here. I've got them for a unit right now. I'm just not confident in the Packers. As we've talked about before on this podcast, they've had some kind of fluky wins in the past, or like maybe not even fluky wins, but fluky covers. Last week is a good example against Washington. As you mentioned, they were outgained. So I think they're due for kind of a wake-up call at some point. And I think this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, we're on the same side here. And you mentioned them having some fluky covers. They haven't played that many good teams. Let me run down the list of quarterbacks their defense has played against so far, and their defense hasn't looked good. They played Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Burrow, it's a good quarterback, and then Justin Fields and Taylor Heineke. It's like not exactly, a Pro Bowl list of quarterbacks there. Kyler Murray is going to be by far the best quarterback they faced so far. Maybe not Joe Burrow, but everyone else is like Kyler Murray is way better than. And I feel like the Cardinals are just going to be able to move the ball so easily against this bad defense. We saw the Packers couldn't stop Taylor Heineke last week. It was just the Redskins stopping themselves with stupid mistakes, and plus the referees and the replay crew screwing up. So I feel like the Cardinals should be able to move the ball easily. And then you have the Packers, who may not have their top three receivers in this game. I feel like it's going to be so tough, especially on a short week. If this were on a Sunday and they had a whole week to prepare with their backup receivers, I could maybe make a case for the Packers, but I just think they're going to be missing way too many players on such a short week. A little scared of Aaron Rodgers getting in back door, so I'm not going to bet this heavily, but I think I'm with you. Probably the Cardinals for a unit, maybe two.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. Like, as you mentioned, Rodgers' backdoor is kind of scary. All it takes is the Cardinals to get up like 13, and then you get a 7-point cover late in the game from Green Bay. Michael just mentioned waiting for Green Bay plus 7.5 might be worth the wait. I don't think it's going to get that high. I don't think it would go through 7. I don't think people would let that happen, because at some point this would have to flip, and you'd have to say, do you think Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to lose by a touchdown in this game? I don't know if I would say that. That's why I'm only 1 unit on the Cardinals. Like, they look like the better side on paper, but there's always the possibility that Rodgers can get the backdoor cover. So that's why I'm only on it for 1 unit. But like you said, Packers are just so banged up. And like their offensive line, we don't know if David Bakhtiari is coming back this week. They're without their starting center. So, against the team with J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, that's definitely going to matter.
Yeah, I think the only way it goes through 7 is if they have way more injuries than this. Because if they just move it to 7.5, they're going to open themselves up. The sportsbooks, I should say, are going to open themselves up to getting middled, and that's just a disaster for them. So I'd be surprised if it goes through 7, unless, like I said, there are numerous other injuries. Like if Aaron Jones is out and Kenny Clark's out, and like a bunch of other Packers are sidelined, then I could see it. But like right now, I don't think it's going to happen. Let's get to the Sunday games. The first one is Dolphins at the Bills. The line opened up Bills minus 13.5. It's remained that number. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I've got the Bills penciled in here. I don't have any units on it right now. I'm not super into this line. I don't like big lines, as evidenced by last week when I think I lost every double-digit line. I'm pretty sure, or at least a vast majority of them. But yeah, I think the Bills have a significant advantage on the Dolphins. They've beaten them in 6 straight games and have won those by an average of 20 points per game. I know that that's not indicative of the team that the Dolphins have right now necessarily, but it's indicative of how good of a coach Sean McDermott has been. And the Bills under Sean McDermott have gone 2-1-1 against the spread after a bye. That's pretty solid. So you're covering, it's just a 50% cover rate, but the push, obviously, that means you're at least getting your money back 75% of the time. So that's not a bad thing. I don't think it's out of the question that the Dolphins could cover this, because Tua Tagovailoa has played better the last couple of games, but we've seen him struggle against the Bills in the past. He had that 3 interception game against them in week 17 last year. And I know he barely played against them in week 2, but the Dolphins got shut out that week after Tua went down. So I'm just not confident in the Dolphins right now. And one of the other things I want to mention is like they might be a little distracted with all the Deshaun Watson buzz coming in and Miami being really the destination for him, as the rumors say. I don't know if anything ends up happening there, but this feels like a a tough spot for them against a very good Bills team coming off extra rest that has had their number in the past. I'm going to be on the Bills here, but again, I do think there's a chance that Tua could get a cover here, so I'm not going to be on this for any units.
Yeah, Tua is so frustrating because he looks so great at times with his accuracy, and then he makes one or probably 2 or 3 mistakes every game where you're like, oh my god, like what is he doing? Like those 2 red zone interceptions last week were just so backbreaking. If they didn't happen, I think the Dolphins win that game. And then against Jacksonville in London, he threw that horrible interception as well. It's very frustrating, and I guess you kind of have to remember that he's so young. He doesn't even have like a full year of playing experience yet. So I think he's going to improve, and you can see the accuracy there. But they need to really build around him. Like that offensive line is terrible. The receiving core has been decimated by injuries. They don't run with the best running back most of the time. Although they're probably going to be forced to in this game because Malcolm Brown's out. Although like that could all be for naught because they might trade him anyway. But yeah, I'm with you on the Bills here. The Dolphins couldn't even beat the Jaguars or the Falcons. I know this is a large spread. And normally I'd say, I think the underdog would cover because the Bills already crushed the Dolphins earlier this year. And it's like, where's the incentive? But I think the incentive is that the Bills are coming off a loss and, they've had a whole week extra to stew over it because they were coming off a bye. And I like the Bills, coming off that loss after the bye. I think they're going to be prepared for Miami. I think they should be able to win this game easily. So I like them here, but I'm probably not going to bet this game just because the line's so high. Like I feel like the Dolphins could sneak in a cover at the end. Like Tua has been good at times, and he could get it done. But then again, I think it's more likely that he throws another horrible interception to kind of ruin things for Miami bettors.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing with me about Tua, and you mentioned it, he has not played a full season's worth of starts yet. So like there are some people in the Deshaun Watson rumors that are like, oh, we got to get rid of Tua. He's terrible. And like, look, I know his picks. He throws some of the worst looking interceptions out there. Zach Wilson is worse to watch. I will say, I'm sorry, Zach Wilson. I'm just piling on him this year, but Tua's are not that far removed. But when Tua looks good, he looks like a solid NFL starter. And I think he's just going to need another year. Like by this time next year, I think he'll have solidified himself as a solid starter. His rookie year was really more about coming back from that brutal hip injury. So his developmental process was always going to take longer. So I think we're seeing that play out a little bit here.
Yeah. Fabricio asking, what is my record betting on Miami this year? So not good. It's 2-5, but I won that big pick of the month game with the Raiders. Although that could have gone the other way too. That was another a heartbreak, heart pounding game where the Raiders almost scored a touchdown in overtime to kind of I'm kind of surprised they didn't given all the results that we've had this year. So anyway, let's move on to the next game. It's the Panthers at the Falcons. This line opened up Falcons -3. It's still -3. So who do you like here?
Yeah, this feels like a trap to me. Maybe I'm off, but the public tends to like Atlanta. So the fact that this is only a 3-point spread leads me to believe the books may want them to bet on Atlanta. Otherwise, they might have made it a 3.5-point spread if they were afraid the Falcons were going to win. Conversely, they could have made it a 2.5-point spread. So again, maybe I'm reading into this too much. But the Falcons are not very good defensively. Their offense has played much better lately. Kyle Pitts is really coming along, and Matt Ryan's playing a lot better. He really struggled the first 2 weeks of the season and has really regained his form. So I've been pleased with what I've seen with him. But, he played well last week against the Dolphins. But as you mentioned, they were a bit lucky to win that game. They got some bad picks from Tua. And at the very end of the game, Matt Ryan had to lead a game-ending drive and game-winning drive for a field goal, which was made. So it ended up being a Falcons win. But, if that swings the other way and they lose, they're 2-4. This might be a little bit more of an equal game. So I don't see a ton of edge in this side, and I don't want to necessarily bet Sam Darnold, but I'm leaning on the Panthers here because I think their defense is going to be better in this one. Stephon Gilmore, I think, is due to come back from the PUP list and play his first game for the Panthers. Their defense has not been nearly as good since J.C. Horn went down. I believe that was against the Texans on Thursday Night Football. They really need another good coverage, physical cornerback out there to pair with Dante Jackson. I think Gilmore should give them that, and he should help bottle up Calvin Ridley. That'll make it harder for the Atlanta offense to move things. I still think Atlanta could win this, but if we're getting 3 on the Panthers, I'll take the risk with them. I know that they've been horrible to watch, and they got killed by the Giants last week, but Sam Darnold is weird. Like, randomly, he'll be like, all right, I'm going to lead this 97-yard game-tying drive against the Vikings after doing nothing for most of that game. So maybe he snaps out of it against a bad defense. So I'm on the Panthers. I got 0-1 unit written down here. Check the injury report. If Gilmore ends up not playing this week, I will like the Panthers a lot less and may switch my pick.
Yeah, I like the Panthers a lot. They're one of my top plays this week. I think the spread's too high. I was looking at like Falcons -3, and the advanced spread was Falcons -2, so they moved it up a whole point, up to 3. And this line says that Atlanta's better than Carolina because they no longer give 3 points to the home team. It's like 2 or 2.5 now. And that's not true. Like, Atlanta's definitely not better than Carolina. Like, I know the Panthers have struggled recently. I know the Falcons have won 2 in a row. But remember, the Falcons lost to the Eagles and the Redskins at home this year. I know they had some lucky wins recently. They played the Jets, which I guess is not lucky, but they were lucky to beat Miami. And you kind of have to look at every position, like outside of quarterback. Where is Atlanta better than Carolina? Like, I feel like Carolina is better at every single position outside of quarterback, or better, I should say better or even at every position outside of quarterback. And the Panthers, I like them coming off this embarrassing loss. I like betting good teams coming off embarrassing losses. Now you might say, okay, Carolina is not a good team, but I think they are a good team. They just have a terrible quarterback. Like, I feel like the rest of their team's good. Like, they have a good pass defense. They have a good pass rush, or pass defense with Stephon Gilmore. They have a good pass rush. They have good receivers. Chuba Hubbard's a finer replacement, I think, at the moment, like short-term replacement. So I think the Panthers are going to bounce back off that ugly loss. I think it's kind of easy to forget, like, they were up at Dallas at halftime. They were winning in the second half against the Eagles. They've had some bad luck recently, but they played some not bad teams, like against Dallas, like they lost against Minnesota. That went to overtime. They could have won that game. Now they're playing the Falcons, who are one of the worst teams in the NFL. And I think this is like a big step down for them in competition. And I think they should be able to take advantage of it. I don't see the Falcons winning this game by more than 3. Like, maybe they win by field goal, but I don't see the Falcons winning this game by more than a field goal.
Yeah, and I think the only reason that I don't have more units on this is because I'm afraid of Sam Darnold, just with how he's been playing lately. If Christian McCaffrey were back, I'd be less concerned, because the Panthers' offense with Christian McCaffrey this year was fine. It's been since he went out against the Texans that they haven't been able to do nearly as much, or at least not nearly as much consistently, and Sam Darnold's looked less comfortable. But I think you make a good case that they haven't played a defense as weak as the Falcons in recent weeks. So I think this will be a nice kind of get-right game for them. So I'll probably end up betting on this one for sure, especially if the number stays where it is. But I'm not going to bet a ton just because my fear of Sam Darnold will outweigh any potential gains I could have here.
Yeah, I don't blame you, but that's why the public's betting the Falcons at -3, like at this inflated point spread. They just don't want to bet Darnold. And I think that's where the money is this week. Like Darnold's terrible, but he should be able to move the ball in the Falcons. I know the Panthers haven't been the same without McCaffrey. Like, you're totally right about that. But I feel like if they hadn't dropped so many balls in recent weeks, like they would look a lot better right now. Like, if they didn't drop 9 passes against the Vikings, they would have won that game. And then they dropped more passes against the Giants, like that kept going. And then maybe that keeps happening. But I feel like variance is going to go in their favor at some point. Maybe kind of like our picks, hopefully.
Yep.
All right. Next game, Eagles at the Lions. This line open up Eagles -3. It's still -3. There are some -3.5s out there, but for the most part, it's like -3, -120 or -125. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I know the Lions are going to be a public dog here, but or at least they were when I looked earlier. I saw some 3.5s with them as a public dog, but I'm still on the Lions at 3.5. At 3, I'm probably way more of a toss-up, but I just think that the Lions are due for some sort of win. Like, they've played so hard under Dan Campbell. They're 0-7, but they're better than a lot of the 2-5 teams across the league. Like, if you look at the bottom tier of the NFL, Like, I know that the Lions don't have a ton of talent, but man, they play hard. Dan Campbell was put on a coaching clinic against how bad teams can stay in the game against good teams with his 2 fake punts, surprise onside kick against the Rams. Like, that was some ballsy stuff from him, and it all worked. And that's why they were able to only lose by 9 in the end to the Rams and really kept it within 1 score or led for most of that game. So props to them for that aggressive game plan. I just think eventually it's going to work out for Dan Campbell. The Eagles, they're not any great shakes. They got banged up a bit in the loss to the Raiders, too. Less concerned about Miles Sanders than I am about Lane Johnson exiting after getting stepped on. They're already down a couple offensive linemen on the interior, and if Lane Johnson has to miss time, they're going to have a little bit of trouble up front. I know that the Lions don't necessarily have the guys available to take advantage of that. But I think Dan Campbell will find a way to get the guys motivated if there are enough injuries and possibly cover and possibly gain their first win here. I've not, every time I've bet the Eagles this year, except when they played the Falcons in week 1, it has gone very poorly. So I'm just going to ride the Lions, who I like better as a team to watch here. So I've got 0-1 units on them. I don't want to bet a ton if they're going to end up being a public dog. But Dan Campbell's due at some point. I'm gonna ride with him until he gets what's due to him.
Yeah, he might be due at some point. I don't think it's going to be this week, though. I mean, this is our big disagreement. I love the Eagles this week. This is one of my top plays as well. Like the Lions are, I think they're terrible. I mean, they tried so hard against the Rams last week. They pulled off 2 fake punts. They got the onside kick, and yet they still lost by 9. Like, if you take away the first 10 points of the game, which they got, like Swift, that touchdown is kind of fluky because he broke a tackle and went the distance, and then they got a field goal because of an onside kick and a fake punt. Take away those 10 points, they lose by 19 to the Rams, even though they played a lot harder than the Rams did. And I think it's easy to forget that the Lions, before the Rams game, they got absolutely destroyed by the Bengals at home. I think coming off such a high effort game where they threw everything they had at the Rams and they came up short, I just don't see how they're going to show up against the Eagles. And the Eagles are coming off an embarrassing loss. I think they're going to rebound. And maybe it's hard to see that because, the Eagles have been terrible at times this year, but the Eagles, they crushed Atlanta in Atlanta, and they beat the Panthers in Carolina. So like they can beat these bad teams. And I think they're definitely better than the Lions. The Lions have offensive line issues as well. Their defense is horrible. I feel like the Eagles should be able to move the ball easily against them. And we're getting line value here. I mean, the advanced spread was -3.5, and now it's down to 3. And even though it's down to 3, the public is all over the Lions. I like betting against public dogs. And I think the Eagles are just the better team. So, I like the Eagles a lot here.
Yeah, I think there's just public frustration with the Eagles because like one week they'll show up and like crush a team, then the next week they'll show up and get crushed themselves. Like they're very inconsistent. But I see your argument. I would trust you on this one over myself because 1, I'm backing a public dog, and 2, I might not end up betting this game, and 3, I have an irrational love for Dan Campbell and just want him to do well. Maybe not irrational, but I think he's a good coach. But yeah, you make great points. I think the Eagles, if they bring their A game, they should be in good shape. But every time I expect them to do that, they don't. And then every time I expect them not to bring their A game, they show up and somehow win against Carolina. Like that game, they really looked like they had no chance in that for a long time, and then they made the comeback. So, but Philly's one of my poison teams this year. Granted, the Lions probably are too. And I think if you look at the Lions schedule too, you'll see like alternating very close losses or losses where they like covered with losses where they get blown out. So maybe this is a blowout week, but I don't know. I feel like riding with Dan Campbell this week, and I'm sure I'll regret it.
Well, I think the Lions are interesting a team to look at. You mentioned like they're on off, so this is like kind of an off week for them theoretically, but I think it has more to do with like how the opponents like handle them because they almost beat the Ravens right in week 3, but the Ravens are coming off that big win against the Chiefs. They were not focused. Marquise Brown dropped 3 touchdowns in that game. Like if he catches those 3 touchdowns, like that game's not getting decided by that field goal. They kept it close against the Vikings. It felt like the Vikings are double-digit favorites. It felt like the Vikings didn't bring their A game to that game. And then you look at some of their opponents who played high effort against them. The Bengals did in week 6. I didn't think they would, but they did, and they destroyed them. Week 4, the Bears beat them by 10. And then the Packers, once they turned it on in the second half, they ended up winning by 18. And the Packers, as we discussed, haven't been that great this year. So I think it really depends on the effort level. Like if the Eagles are coming off a win against the Raiders, I think this could be a trap game for them. But because they lost by so much, and like people are calling for Nick Sirianni's job, like people in Philly are yearning for the days of Doug Peterson. Like that's how bad it's gotten. I think the Eagles are going to have a high effort game here, and I think they come away with the win.
Yeah, I think you could be right.
Yeah, we'll see. This is my pick of the month, by the way. The Titans at the Colts. This line opened up Titans -1. It's still -1. There's a -1.5 out there at Bovada, I believe. But yeah, I love one side in this game. I'm hoping we are on the same side here. Who do you like?
This is one of my favorite picks of the week, so I hope we're on the same side too. But I have the Colts in this one.
Nice.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad about that. I was going to be really worried if not. But, these two teams, like, if you look at the history between them right now, they've already squared off once this year, right? And that was a 25-16 win by the Titans. So you might be a little like, if you didn't pay attention to that game, you might be like, why are the Titans only a 1-point favorite? They're much better than the Colts. But that was the game where Carson Wentz was playing on like 2 sprained ankles. He was missing so much of his offensive line. Quentin Nelson was out. Braden Smith was out. Xavier Rhodes, I think, at that time was out. The Colts have just had so many injuries, and they've been so much better in recent weeks now that they're getting back to full strength. We saw Quentin Nelson come back against the 49ers. He looked good. He got called for a couple holding penalties, but you can't really be blamed. There was driving rain in that game, and generally he blocked very well in that bomb cyclone of a night. And that really helped the Colts to win. Xavier Rhodes, when he's not on the field, the Colts defense is just so much worse. Like they're down 2 cornerbacks when he's been out because Rocky Sin's been out. But when Rhodes hasn't been on the field, like we saw it in the Baltimore game, the Colts were leading big. They were leading by 16 late. Xavier Rhodes went out and the Ravens made the comeback and won in overtime. If that doesn't happen, we're talking about the Colts maybe being more equal than the Titans at this point. And then this is all to say, too, T.Y. Hilton's only played in 1 game, and he might be back this week. He didn't play the first time against the Titans. If he's back, that receiving core is a lot better, too. So the fact that the Colts are a home underdog in this, I like them a lot. I think they could easily win this game. The Titans are coming off some massive wins over the Bills and the Chiefs. They're probably riding high. This game won't mean as much to them as it means to the Colts because the Titans win this one. They can basically not fully put the AFC South race to bed, but they would take a huge lead. The Colts are playing for their life in this game, basically, because if they lose, they're very, very far behind the 8 ball. If they win, they at least are within striking distance of the Titans. So I think there's a huge motivational edge for the Colts. So I think Indy's the good pick here as home underdog. So I will be on them for 2 to 3 units, I believe. And I'm excited to hear what you think about this one.
Yeah, I love the Colts. I think everything goes in their favor in this matchup. I think they match up well against the Titans. They're one of the few teams that can maybe handle Derrick Henry. Last time Henry rushed for 4 yards per carry against them, which is I think it's his 3rd lowest total of the year, average of the year. The Colts have a good run defense, and they can force Ryan Tannehill into passing the ball. And Tannehill in that game threw 2 interceptions, and that game was only close because of the 2 interceptions. Like the Colts scored on those possessions. And yeah, it should have been an even uglier loss because Wentz could barely move around. Like he was terrible in that game. Like he shouldn't have played. But yeah, Wentz is healthy now, and the Colts have been playing a lot better. As you mentioned, they're up 22-3 against the Ravens on Monday night. They probably win that game if Rose doesn't get hurt, like you said. They beat the Niners pretty impressively in the rain this past Sunday night. And back when they were healthier in week 2, they outplayed the Rams. They almost won that game too. So, if they win one of these games and they're not 3-4 and they're like 4-3, maybe even 5-2, the spread's definitely going to be like -3, right? And like around there. And that leads me to what the advanced spread on this game was. The advanced spread was -2.5, Colts -2.5. Now it's Colts +1, so this line moved 3.5 points. And I have to imagine that the advanced spread 2 weeks before this, before the Titans beat the Bills, it was probably like -3 even. So like we might be even getting like even greater line value than what we think. I know like it's scary to go against the Titans because like first Henry is a monster, and second, the Titans are coming off big wins against the Bills and the Chiefs. But like those are two statement games, and I like first of all, I don't think the Bills brought their A game to that game. Like I feel like they thought they could handle the Titans easily because they were big favorites, and then the Chiefs, they just made so many mistakes. They weren't playing at their best either. So you have the Titans like getting these two marquee victories over two teams that didn't play their best. And it's so easy to forget that the Titans lost to the Jets a few weeks ago. I know that A.J. Brown and Julio Jones weren't playing that game, but their defense still couldn't stop Zach Wilson. And like their defense still has injury issues. Their two of their top cornerbacks are out. So that means the Colts should be able to throw all over them. The Colts could have T.Y. Hilton back. We don't know yet. They could have Braden Smith back as well. So they're going to have their entire offensive line. And the Colts they're going to be a lot healthier than they've been. Meanwhile, the Titans have the injury issues. And like you said, the motivational edge is in Indianapolis' favor as well. The Vegas edge is in Indianapolis' favor too, because there's about like 90% of the actions on the Titans. So I just love everything about the Colts. This is my pick of the month.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page here because this was one of my three favorites. I do three best bets with my NFL odds roundup every Tuesday at Sporting News, and this made the cut there. So I'm happy we're on the same page here. And I think I can officially say that Braden Smith is this year's Cordy Glenn, where we have talked about him almost every week on the podcast. Been like, hey, if he comes back, this is going to look really great. And he's still not back yet, but I feel like he's going to be back eventually. If he comes back this week, it's great. But yeah, the line value here is great. Colts as an underdog is great. Carson Wentz has looked really good. So yeah, I'll be on this for probably my highest unit count of the week.
Yeah, Braden Smith practiced on Friday, so there's something. It's not like he missed every practice last week. Like him coming back to practice on Friday, like might mean that he's going to be back, and then maybe next week once he returns, we won't mention his name for the first time. That'd be nice.
Yep.
All right, next game. This spread's a lot higher. The Rams at the Texans. This line open up Rams minus 14.5, and I should say I'm kind of surprised that there's even a spread on this game. I shouldn't say I'm surprised. I'm saying this is an old guy who remembers back in the day where the sportsbooks used to hold out the spreads for an unknown quarterback issue until like game time sometimes, like an hour before kickoff. But now every website has its own sportsbook, so they can't do that. So we have a 14.5 point spread. We don't know who Houston's quarterback is going to be. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I like the Rams if Davis Mills plays. I'm not falling into that trap again. I've bet on him with the second time, I didn't even bet on him against Arizona, but I was like, no, he'll cover this. And then they were leading 5-0, and you're like, all right, they're probably going to cover 18.5. Nope, they lost by 26. Like, they led by 5-0 for like a good chunk of that game, like way more than you would have thought. So, yeah, the Texans can't do anything on offense with Davis Mills. He's always was more of a developmental project. Like, good for him for getting on the field and looking good again in that one game against the Patriots. But largely, he has proven that he is years away from contributing. That said, if Tyrod Taylor comes back, I might stick with the Rams. I'd have to see where this line would end up because I would assume it would move fairly significantly because Taylor has played well this year and has kept the Texans in a lot of games. But I think the Rams have the firepower edge here. They did not look great last week against the Lions. I don't think they tried very hard. And granted, I know this isn't like any sort of step up in competition for them now. But I feel like after like what was kind of a close call against Detroit, they'll try a little harder in this one. So I'm on the Rams for now. I'm not betting this until we know who the quarterback is. But the Texans couldn't even cover a 20-point spread with Davis Mills last week. So if he's the quarterback, I have no qualms about choosing the Rams and probably betting them, though I hate how high the line is. So,
Well, what's interesting about this point spread is that it's not even that high if you consider that Davis Mills could start a quarterback because right. the line last week was minus 20. So if you move it like 4 points, say 2 to neutral, then 2 to the other, home field, it would be 16. And that, like, considering the Rams and Cardinals would be even, right? So the spread's 1.5 points too low if Davis Mills is playing. But then you have to consider, okay, if Tyrod Taylor is playing, like, what should the spread be? And I made this line with Taylor. I made it like minus 9.5. Like, I think Taylor is definitely like 6 points better than Davis Mills, like even more, maybe even more. But I was kind of being conservative there. So if you really think that Tyrod Taylor is going to play, like we don't know yet, but it sounds like he will. I think the Texans are the right side because the spread is too inflated. Now the Rams could still definitely cover the spread. The Texans are, like there's not much talent there, especially with Laramie Tunsil out. The defense is pretty bad. So like it's not a guarantee. So like if Taylor starts, I'm not going to bet the Texans heavily or anything. But I'm definitely going to pick them if he starts because, like you said, he's been able to keep them in games. Like the first 2 games he played, he beat the Jaguars, and then pretty convincingly. And then in week 2, he was I think it was like a 4-point game or a tie game at half, or is a close game against Cleveland at halftime in Cleveland. So like that was a tough opponent. This is kind of almost a slightly better opponent than a healthy Cleveland team. So I think Taylor should be able to keep this game close with the scrambling ability. He's going to throw to. He's going to complete more passes to Brandon Cooks, who's going to be in a revenge game. So it really depends on who the quarterback is. If it's Mills, I'm definitely on the Rams. If it's Taylor, I'm going to be on the Texans.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'll probably, if the line is the 9.5 you thought, because I thought it might move to 8.5. That was my original thought with Tyrod. So if it's 9.5, I probably would switch to the Texans with Tyrod there. But obviously, I have like no interest in betting this game until I know who the quarterback is. Because like even if I think Taylor's going to start, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting great line value here, the chances that he doesn't, and me being on Davis Mills is just too horrifying in my mind. Like I want nothing to do with Davis Mills, so I'll be waiting on this one. And if it drops, I might switch my pick. But yeah, I think the way you explained it makes a lot of sense to me.
So something like sort of risky that you can do is if you want to bet this game and you think Taylor's going to play, you bet the Texans now. But if Taylor sits out and this line goes to like 16.5 or 17, then you bet the Rams. You bet the even amount. And then like you only lose like badly if the game middles, like if the Rams win by exactly 15 or 16, which is pretty unlikely. I guess like famous last words, right? But like it is unlikely to happen that way because those aren't key numbers of any sort. So like that's something you could do. I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm just going to wait, but that's at least something you could consider. Andrew says Houston has the mental edge with Cooks having a revenge game. I think that Houston has the mental edge anyway because the Rams play against the Titans next week. They may be preparing for Derrick Henry, who's one of the MVP candidates. I think they're going to be more focused for that game than this game. Like I don't think Houston's really on the radar or anything. So I would say the mental edge is definitely in Houston's favor, but that won't mean anything if Davis Mills starts because Mills is terrible. All right, we have a high spread again here for a road favorite. The Bengals are at the Jets. Bengals open up -10. It's still -10, and I should say the advanced spread on this game was -3.5. So it's moved a lot, but only because of the quarterback change. Not only because of the quarterback change, but mostly because of it. Because Zach Wilson's out, Mike White is going to start. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I love the Bengals in this one. I'm not usually this gung-ho about huge spreads, but I mean, we were right on the Bengals last week. It was the whole they wanted to beat Lamar Jackson after he had made them look silly all those years. And I know that they're poised for a potential emotional letdown this week, but I think the mentality of this Bengals team is like no one really believed them coming into this season. And right now they're the 1 seed in the AFC. I think they're going to want to keep that going. I think they're going to see an opportunity on their plate. They're like young and hungry. They're going to be able to beat this Jets team pretty soundly. I mean, New York's been terrible. They just lost by like 40 points to the Patriots. And like, I love the Patriots as a team. Like they're my hometown team, but like, they're not as good as the Bengals are right now. Not as a well-rounded team. And I just think with the Jets preparing to start a new quarterback in week 8, their options are just terrible. Like, we're looking at Mike White, who made his NFL debut last week. And, he racked up some yardage, but he had 2 interceptions. And that was against the Patriots defense that really wasn't trying for most of the second half of the game. They just kept they kept ending up with the ball and scoring more points. Like it just kept happening. And then the other options would be Josh Johnson or Joe Flacco, who they, for some reason, traded for. I don't understand why. I truly I'm like, all right, because what it means to me is they either mean, all right, we traded for Joe Flacco because we don't believe Mike White can start, in which case, Mike White, why would you make him your backup? And in which case, also, why would you let Joe Flacco go and then have to trade for him? Like, it didn't make any sense. And if you look at what Joe Flacco has done, so if you're assuming they traded for Joe Flacco to make him start this week over Mike White, first of all, he's learning a new offensive system that he has some background in Denver. But if his offensive numbers are terrible for the Jets the last couple of years, last year, actually, I think he played 4 games. He lost all of them. He completed like 55% of his passes. He had 6 touchdowns to 3 picks, so that's not bad, but they couldn't move the ball with him, and I don't expect it to be any better. So long story short, the quarterback situation for New York is terrible. It's like, I know it was bad with Zach Wilson, but somehow it's gotten worse. Like, I don't think Mike White's better or equal to Zach Wilson. So I don't mind the spread moving. I think the Bengals could win this game like 40-10 if they want to. If they want to is a scary part, but I feel like all the Bengals have to do is score like 27 points at most. Like, that bare maximum, score 27 points, and you are good at here. So I'm gonna be rolling with the Bengals for 2 to 3 units.
Yeah, I'm surprised by everyone saying that Flacco might start. Like, I assume they were bringing him in to be the backup, but I guess he could be a starter this week. If that's the case, then I like the Bengals even more than I thought. With Mike White, like, at least Mike White knows the system and has been in it for a few weeks. Joe Flacco doesn't, like, maybe from Denver, but like, it's a new offensive coordinator. It's not like Adam Gase is still coaching this team from last year. Like, you'd have to like learn a new system, like suddenly in such a short period of time. I don't think that's a good strategy. And like, Flacco's pretty washed up. Like, he has nothing left. At least Mike White is an unknown, and there's no film on him outside of that one half against the Patriots. So yeah, plus, like, if Flacco's under center, like, the Bengals might be more likely to pay attention to that. And like, okay, Flacco's the quarterback, like, legitimate guy. They played him in the division for a long time. I know it's different personnel, but still, he's still like a known person that they might care more about. Whereas Mike White isn't. But then again, like, Mike White reminds me of Davis Mills, where it's kind of like a terrible quarterback on a terrible team's like not going to cover that often. Davis Mills is 1-4 against the spread, and I feel like if Mike White has to start 5 games, he's probably going to be 1-4 against the spread. So I think the Bengals will cover here. The only concern I have with the Bengals is that this might be a look ahead, because they're coming off that big win against Baltimore, and next week they have to play against Cleveland. They could be flat here, but I think that given that they're such a young and enthusiastic team, I think they're less likely to look ahead. Like, whereas if they were a veteran team, they'd be like, we can win this game easily, But I think the Bengals are going to have more energy. Like, I think they're eager to prove to everyone that they're legit. So I'm with you on the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm glad we agree on the emotion, or the at least mentality of the Bengals. It just it makes sense to me, because Jamar Chase, we were among the people who were like, you can't catch a ball in the preseason. What's going on? And it was like, Joe Burrow is playing like 2 preseason snaps. What's going on? So I think they're relishing this opportunity to be like, hey, like, we're a lot better than anyone thought we were. So yeah, Mike White. Some people, I always worry about like the Nick Mullins thing that could possibly happen when it's like, a guy with no tape goes into the game, but I don't think Mike White's going to do that for the Jets. I just think they're just not a good team at all right now. And if they haven't been able to get anything out of Zach Wilson, I can't imagine they're going to get much out of Mike White. So glad we're on the same page here, because I hate being on opposite sides of big spreads.
Yeah, and the opponent's not a crappy Raider team that's going to fold to Nick Mullins. The Bengals are legit, like, they're a good team. So yeah, I'd be surprised if they lose this game. I think they win it. Just like I said, the only concern I have is that it might be a look ahead, but I don't think it will be. So we're on the same side there. All right, 2 more in the early slate. We have the Steelers at the Browns. This line opened up Browns -3. It popped up to 3.5. Looks like tons of sharp action on the Browns. So are you with the sharps in this game?
I am with the sharps, but I did write in all capital letters "ugh" like a lot of times, because this started like a run of 3.5-point spreads, which have been horrible for me this year. There are like 5 on this slate, or at least the early slate for them. So I was not a fan of them, but I know that the Steelers are coming off a bye and should be better rested, and they've had more time to prepare for this one, but they actually are getting really unfortunate because the Browns are coming off of a mini bye, so they'll have extra time to prepare for this as well. And the Browns really needed some time off after that Thursday night game because they were so banged up. They were down their top two running backs. Odell Beckham wasn't 100%. Jarvis Landry got nicked up at the end of the game, and Jack Conklin wasn't playing. They ended up actually playing more guys than I thought they would in that game. I was glad I bet the Broncos plus 3.5 early that week because I would have lost if I had not. So that ended up working well. But I want to see who's going to be healthy for the Browns this week. If Conklin, Jarvis Landry, and Baker Mayfield all come back, I'm going to really like the Browns in this one because they're going to have like most of their starting offense back. If Baker Mayfield is healthy, which, I know Case Keenum looked good, but I would trust him less against a good Pittsburgh defense. If Baker Mayfield's healthy, I like it a lot. And I know the Steelers, they've been dealing with some injuries, so they might get Zach Banner back, but how much is that realistically going to help their offensive line? I don't know. And I think that the Browns have the personnel needed to contain the offensive weapons and pressure Big Ben. So you're talking about Najee Harris having to beat this defense basically by himself, which, Harris has looked great as a rookie, but I don't know if he can like lead the Steelers to a win over the Browns if their dynamic offense is running. And even if the Browns are without Nick Chubb for another week, Dearness Johnson looked great. As long as he's running behind that offensive line, they should be in good shape. And we still don't know what the Steelers D-line looks like. So I like the Browns at minus 3.5. I don't know how many units I'm going to bet on this one. So I've got it penciled in for like 0 to maybe 3 at the most, but probably more likely 0 to 2.
Yeah, I love this matchup for the Browns, like on both sides of the ball. You mentioned the Steelers defensive line, which is missing some personnel. But we just saw Alex Collins run all over them in the second half the last time they played a game. And that was against the Seahawks, the Geno Smith-led Seahawks at home, which they almost lost. And if they had lost that game, and they were 2-4 right now, I think the spread would be a lot higher, not just minus 3.5, which is kind of the dreaded number because 3 is the most likely result in football. Like minus 3.5 is like the worst spread you can bet. But I think it's a good time to bet this number. I think the Browns are a lot better than the Steelers. I don't think it's even close. Like even if Baker Mayfield says, I actually like the Browns more with Case Keenum more than with an injured Baker Mayfield. Because good teams play well with their backup quarterbacks, and I think that's going to be the case here. And I mentioned that I like the Browns, like on offense. It just seems like I said, they're going to run all over the Steelers. Defensively, their defensive line is going to absolutely demolish the Steelers' offensive line. And Ben Roethlisberger is just so washed up. Like he barely beat the Seahawks. He lost to the Bengals in a blowout earlier this year. He lost to the Raiders at home by 9 points. He could barely move the ball against the Packers. The Packers won that game by 14, but it was 10 or 14. I can't remember, but it was a much larger disparity as 10. It was a much larger disparity because the Steelers got a late touchdown. The Steelers are a bad football team. They're not a 3-3 team. In fact, they could even be 1-5 right now. Like they had that fluky opening win against the Bills, which still doesn't make sense. And then they beat the Seahawks in overtime. They could have lost that game. They could be 1-5 right now, really. And I think the Browns should be higher. The spread should be higher. I think the spread should be at least -6. So I love the Browns. Like I said, I love betting on good teams with their backup quarterbacks, and this is just a good spot for the Browns.
Yeah, I have this thing like with when bye weeks happen, I forget the team coming off the bye, I forget all of their injuries. I'm like, so the more I talk about the Steelers and remember their defensive line being down a few guys, the more that I like this. And Charles, Kareem Hunt does not hold 0 value, but he is not coming back this upcoming week. If he had a chance, then he would have some value, but he's on IR. Yeah, and I'll take Andrew's question here. Is Big Ben better than Joe Flacco right now? Tough question, but I'd probably still go with Big Ben. He has shown at least the ability to occasionally make a big throw. Joe Flacco, we saw him do well in the first preseason game. That's the last time I remember him playing well in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I would take Ben right now over Flacco. If Roethlisberger had a good offensive line, he would be looking a lot better right now. But if you put Flacco on that team, I don't think they'd have any wins at all. So yeah, I definitely think it's Ben. I wanted to address this comment by Andrew. He said Steelers have the mental edge with the revenge factor for the embarrassing playoff loss. So I think that would be the case if the Browns, if they had like a 5-1 or 6-1 record right now, and they were like 10-point favorites over the Steelers. Then you could say like, okay, maybe they'd look past the Steelers, and the Steelers would want that revenge so much that the motivation would be in their favor. But these teams' records are so close, and this is a big rivalry. And I just don't see the Browns like taking the Steelers softly. Like even though the Steelers are not a good team, like they're still known as a good team. Like or at least they're known as like a renowned team, like where people know who they are, and like their defense is pretty infamous. Like they have TJ Watt and everything. So the Browns are going to take them seriously for sure. Maybe that wouldn't be the case if they're 1-5. Like I said, they could be, but at 3-3, they're definitely going to play hard in this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it also goes back to the fact that Cleveland needs a win. Like if they lose, they're falling behind two teams in the AFC North race. So very important game for them here too.
Yeah, for sure. Last of the early games, the Niners are at the Bears. This line opened up Niners -3, actually -3.5. It moved down to -3. So it looks like some sharp action on the Bears. So are you with the Sharps again?
I'm not with the Sharps on this one, actually. I would probably go with the 49ers. I know that they're not in great shape. They're dealing with some injuries. But Jimmy Garoppolo did not look good in his last game, but that last game took place during a bomb cyclone, and like anyone would have trouble throwing the ball. Like Carson Wentz had an ugly fumble in the game where like the ball was barely touched and it went out flying out of his hand into the defender. It was just that was just the game. Like it was going to be whoever could figure out a way to throw in that weather. And it turned out to be the Colts. And I don't think there's any shame in losing to them because the Colts are better than their record says they are. I think the Bears are horrible. They're painful to watch on offense. Matt Nagy, eventually the players are going to quit on him. I can't imagine him coming back. Justin Fields has looked really, really terrible. And as Andrew pointed out, maybe Nagy was right to start Andy Dalton. But if that was the case, then they probably should have, instead of being like, Andy's our starter, it may have been like, we want to give Justin a year to develop or something. It's like the key phrases that need to be said so people know what's going on, so that there's some sort of plan. But I just think that the Bears aren't good. They've been bad against the run lately. They've been missing Akeem Hicks. I don't know if he's going to be back in action, but if he's not, I could see Elijah Mitchell was running like crazy over the Colts in that first quarter. Then the field got really sloppy and he could not cut basically without slipping. So he could only rip off like 4-yard chunks. But I like the offensive line matchup for the 49ers against the Bears front. I think they move the ball. I think Jimmy G has a little bit of a bounce back. I know he's not a great starting quarterback, but if he's able to, just move the ball and avoid turnovers, provided that he's healthy, of course, the calf's a little bit of a concern. I still think that the 49ers will pull this one off. So I'm going to be on the 49ers here. I'm not betting this heavily. I've got 0 to 1 units, leaning towards 1 unit on them, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this game.
So this is our second disagreement of the day. I like the Bears here, coming off that embarrassing loss. I think it was misleading. Like they had so many turnovers, and I know you could say that they're a bad team, so they turn the ball over a lot, and they have a bad offensive line. But I don't think like they're 32 points worse than the Buccaneers are. I feel like they had a lot of bad luck in that game, and I think that game could have been closer if they didn't have those unfortunate turnovers. Like the ball bounced. Like one of Fields' turnovers was an interception where the ball bounced off Darnell Mooney's hands. Like that shouldn't happen all the time. And the Bears recently, they beat the Raiders in Las Vegas. And I know maybe the Raiders weren't like completely focused for that game. But more recently, the Bears kept, a game close against the Packers. Like it was a 10-point game. I think it was like pretty close. It was like 7 until the fourth quarter. So the Bears hung around in that game. And I think they should be able to hang around against the Niners. And for me, it really depends on Akeem Hicks' status. Like I'm assuming Hicks is going to be back because he was close to playing last week. So if Hicks is back, I think they should be able to handle the run and force Garoppolo into passing, which is never good. And I think the Niners, I really don't think they should be 3-point road favorites over anyone except for maybe like the Texans, Jets, Lions, like teams like those. the Niners this year, they haven't won since they beat the Eagles. They opened the year beating the Lions and then beating the Eagles by 6, and then ever since then they've had mostly home games. And they lost to the Seahawks at home by 7. They lost to the Colts at home by 12. And now they have to go on the road again. I just don't think they're, like I said, I don't think they're good enough to be 3-point road favorites on the road. So I think maybe that's what the Sharps are looking at with the Bears, kind of like buying them low and selling the Niners. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not crazy about this game. Like, this might be 1 or 2 units for me on the Bears. But like I said, it really depends on Hicks' status.
Yeah, no, I see the case you're making for sure. I just I did this earlier in the season at one point and ended up being wrong, but I've been on Chicago so many times and it's failed, and I've just been like, all right, I got to quit Matt Nagy. And then I end up going back to him eventually. But I think that both of these teams, you could make a case for buy low candidates. And if I had to pick one to buy low on, I'd rather buy low on the 49ers, even as 3-point road favorites. But, this isn't one I'm planning on betting heavily. So, yeah, I can definitely see the Bears bouncing back. I'm just not confident in Justin Fields yet either. Got to see a little more from him.
Yeah, I don't even think it's Justin Fields' fault. Like, he's not playing well, but I don't think Matt Nagy's putting him in a good situation. Why isn't Matt Nagy using more of Justin Fields' legs? Like, why is he turning him into a pocket passer? Like, that's not who Fields is. Especially behind that offensive line where like Fields held the ball a long time in Ohio State. Like, he's just setting him up for failure. And we saw that against the Buccaneers where he got strip sacked a couple of times. So yeah, I think this is Matt Nagy's fault. Like, I don't think they should go back to Andy Dalton because what's the point? Like, why bench Fields? Yeah. Like, why hurt his confidence? I just don't see it. Like, I feel like Matt Nagy just needs to coach better.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's Matt Nagy's fault. I just want to see Justin Fields make the best of a bad situation. Like, that's what the rest of this year is going to be about. And if he can do it, then he'll show some really good traits. If not, then it'll be abundantly clear that they desperately need a coaching change to, Matt Nagy has not been able to develop Mitch Trubisky or Justin Fields. And then that would be 2 major red flags.
Yeah, he needs to go for sure. All right, next game, Jaguars at the Seahawks. The sign opened up Seahawks -3.5. It's down to 3. So who do you like here?
I like the Seahawks in this one. I view this very similarly to the 49ers game. I'm buying low on the Seahawks here. I just don't trust the Jaguars. I know they're coming off a bye. They should be healthier. They've had time to game plan for this one. And the Seahawks are coming off of a short week so this is going to be tough for them to fix their problems. They struggled really badly against the Saints pass rush. But at the same time, the Seahawks defense played really well against the Saints. They've been playing it better since they put that rookie Trey Brown into the lineup to replace Trey Flowers, who they parted ways with. So their secondary has been better. Their pass rush rotation is decent. It's nothing great, but they can get pressure against offensive lines that have some issues with them. The Jaguars would qualify. I'm absolutely not a fan of Urban Meyer and the Jaguars. I want nothing to do with them. They're coming off of a win in London before their bye. So, while, they have the extra time to prepare, is Urban Meyer really preparing for this game, or is he preparing to do something else? I don't know. We could not trust him after the Thursday night game to go home on the team flight that one time. And that did not end well. So I think with all the problems there, like, it was probably a nice, much needed break for everyone in Jacksonville, but I'm just not sure that they're going to be better off their bye. So I'd rather back the Seahawks. I feel like, I know Geno Smith's been not good outside of that DK Metcalf throw he made. He'll have to be better in the pocket, and they'll have to figure out a way to get the ball out and into the hands of their playmakers quicker. I don't like betting on that on a short week, which is why I've got 0-1 units on the Seahawks here, but I'm just not willing to trust Urban Meyer. It's the same thing as the Nagy thing. I don't want to trust coaches that I don't believe in. Yeah,
usually you want to bet on good coaches with more time to prepare, but you might want to fade bad coaches with more time to prepare, because, like you said, we don't know what Urban Meyer was doing during the bye week. I wrote down on the site that the Saints really figured out that they can use Alvin Kamara as the receiving threat out of the backfield against the Seahawks. And I was like, if Urban Meyer was paying attention, which he probably wasn't, like, he could probably use James Robinson in the same role. We just don't know if he's going to do that. So I'm with you on this game right now. I may change this pick depending on the injury report. The Seahawks didn't have Damian Lewis, so they were missing 2 offensive linemen against the Saints. That kind of scared me. That was one of the reasons why I moved that out of the pick of the month and just made it a 5-unit bet. The Seahawks had trouble protecting against the Saints, and I think that could be the case, if they were playing a good defensive team, which they're not. Like, the Jaguars don't really have anything going for them defensively. So that's something in Geno Smith's favor. But then again, I still don't trust Geno Smith as a favorite. So I'd have a lot of problems just betting the Seahawks as a favorite in this game. Like, I'm picking them right now, but I really can't bet them unless I know that their offensive line's healthier. But even still, it's still pretty tough. So I'm just going to stay away from this game. I have no confidence in the selection.
Yeah, that's fair. This is like one of my lesser favorite games of the week. Like, there are some with higher spreads that I'm not betting, but yeah, I don't want to trust the Jaguars to cover here, but I don't love trusting Geno Smith as a favorite.
Yeah, Fabrizio's asking why only -3. The Jaguars are considered the worst team by far 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's Geno Smith, like how, like, if it's -3.5 for -4, like, I'd consider the Jaguars just because I don't trust Geno Smith to beat a big spread. Normally I like betting good teams with backup quarterbacks. I don't know if that's the Seahawks though. Like, I know the Seahawks are 2-0 against the spread with Geno Smith so far, but they've been underdogs. Now they're being asked to cover as a favorite. I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things about that too, like with the good team against backup quarterback, not sure the Seahawks are a great team. They have some pretty significant holes that Russell Wilson can kind of mask with his play. Geno can't do the same thing. So good teams with backup quarterbacks can cover, but when they're favorites, it's a lot harder for them to do that.
Yeah. So another comment, Walt, sometimes I think you're under evaluating the coaching staff in your picks. That's referring to the Bears. So the Bears are 3-4 against the spread this year. So like they can cover in good situations, I think. And I think this is a good situation against the Niners. But yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of evaluate a team with this coaching staff when you're doing your power rankings and kind of deciding where the spread is. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the Bears are home underdogs at that point. So, all right, let's move on. The next game is Patriots at the Chargers. This line opened up -6, is down to 5.5. So who do you like here?
I like the Patriots here. I know the Chargers are a better team than them, but this spread is just something that the Patriots should be able to cover if they play like they have for most of the season. I believe they would have a 5-2 record against the spread if they played against a 5.5-point spread every week. I get it. That's not a good way to do business, but it just goes to show you they've been keeping games close. They've had a couple of games that they've had one blowout loss. That was a 15-point loss to the Saints. And then they had only one other loss that was by more than 5.5 points. That was the overtime loss to the Cowboys, which easily could have been a field goal because the Cowboys had it second in that overtime. We just got unlucky because the Cowboys dialed up a touchdown play to CeeDee Lamb and the Patriots couldn't cover it at that point. Little bitter feelings on this podcast about that one. But there was also a blatant face mask penalty that was missed on the previous drive that would have put the Patriots in scoring range. So it should have been a cover either way. Then again, they were outgained by 200 in that game. Anyway, bearing the lead there. But the Chargers, they've played in a game decided by more than one possession just twice this year, and they've only won one of them. So they're going to have a tough time, I think, doing anything to beat this Patriots team by multiple scores. So you're talking about keeping it within a touchdown. I know we're not getting 6 or 7 here, but I still think that the Patriots will do well. They found a way to contain Justin Herbert last year. Now, maybe that means there's more motivation for Herbert to come back and be like, prove himself coming out of the bye week and say, hey, I can beat this Patriots defense. I think that will happen to an extent. But I also think that the Patriots did find a way to rattle Justin Herbert, and they'll try to replicate that. And I don't think they're going to win 45-0 again like they did last year by any means. But I think they can keep this close. This just seems like more of a field goal game to me. I know the Patriots have only have 3 wins, and 2 of them come over the Jets. But they've just played so many close games. It feels like they're due for another close game where Belichick and the team come close to getting a win over a good team or win against a good team. So I'm going to roll with the Patriots here at plus 5.5. The Chargers are still middle of the pack defensively. So I think that the Patriots for 2 units here is my play, but I'm interested to hear if you agree with me on this one, because I'm not sure what other people are thinking here.
I like the Chargers quite a bit. So the Chargers are coming off that horrible loss to the Ravens 2 weeks ago. I like betting good teams coming off an embarrassing loss, and the Chargers have had a lot of time to stew over it. Then they've had a lot of time to stew over that 45-0 loss as well. So this is kind of a revenge game. Those two teams from last year are so different, though. I know like Cam Newton was quarterbacking. I'm not talking about quarterback though. Like their defense back then, they had Stephon Gilmore. He's gone. Jonathan Jones is gone as well. And then you look at the Chargers, who have a much better offensive line now. They were missing personnel right before the bye. They were missing the two linebackers, Nazir Adderley, Justin Jones. All of them are expected to be back. Like they all practice on Monday. So that's a nice boon for the Chargers. And something that really surprised me is I was looking at the Patriots schedule. Do you know how many times the Patriots have played on the road so far, and like who they played against, like off the top of your head? Like, do you know?
I don't off the top of my head. I know they've only played a couple of road games though.
Yeah, they played only 2 road games so far. One was against the Jets and one was against the Texans. And like they almost lost to the Texans. And like so they really haven't been tested by a good team on the road yet. Like they played the Buccaneers at home, Cowboys at home. They've feasted off their home crowd in these underdog games. But now they're going to be at the Chargers, and like, okay, maybe you could say that they're going to have fans in the stands, but still, it's a road game, which Mac Jones really hasn't been involved in yet. I just think the Chargers I think they're a lot better than the Patriots. Like the Patriots, like they've been able to hang around with some like cunning ability with their coaching. But the Chargers are much better coached this year than they were last year. They have a much better offensive line. Their defense is getting reinforcements back. I just feel like this is going to be a big win for the Chargers.
Yeah, I think I can see where you're coming from on this. I had not given enough thought to the pre-bye week loss there. I'm not sure I think the Patriots are going to come in so motivated though. Like I just have this feeling about it, like because Belichick is going to have them like coming off that big win against the Jets. Some teams would get a little lazy, but I think Belichick's going to be like, big whoop, guys, you beat the Jets, and be like, this is our real test. Like we got to get back to 500. So I think they're going to be motivated. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think the Chargers probably ultimately win, but I think it's going to be closer than people realize. I've also been good at handicapping both of these teams this year, so we'll see if I end up being wrong on both of these and then feel really bad about myself. But I'm going to stick with the Patriots here. So another one of our bigger disagreements this week, but this one will probably be the one I watch with the most intrigue.
Yeah, it is. It's our third disagreement, which is pretty cool, I think. But yeah, you're definitely right about Belichick motivating the team. Like, if there's one coach who's going to be like, that win meant nothing, it's gonna be Belichick for sure. So I definitely think the Patriots are going to try hard in this game. I just think the Chargers are also going to try hard, and I think there's just a lot better than the Patriots right now. But we'll see. It should be an interesting game to watch. So this next one, Redskins at the Broncos. This line opened up Broncos -3.5. It's down to 3. There's a ton of public money coming in on the Redskins. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to fade the public here. I know I had the public dog lines earlier. I don't want Washington in this situation. This doesn't feel like a good spot for them. I know that they're probably like people are probably looking at how they played against the Packers last week and are like, oh, they're kind of a sleeper here against the Broncos. But I think that the Broncos, they've been down on their luck a bit. They've been dealing with injuries especially in their front seven. It's been brutal. They're down to their top 2 linebackers. They just traded for Kenny Young because they're so desperate for linebacker help. And Von Miller got banged up against the Broncos. So not the Broncos. He's on the Broncos against the Browns. So they were down their top 2 edge rushers in that game as well. Yet they were still able to keep that within 3, which I think spoke well to them, even though the Browns were depleted by injuries as well. I think that Washington has a good matchup here, but the Broncos have so many weapons on offense. They just need their offensive line to show up and slow down the Washington pass rush. If they can do that and give Teddy Bridgewater time to distribute the ball to Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy might be back soon, so if he plays, Then you're talking about adding Judy to the mix there with Tim Patrick also. And then the two good running backs, though Javonte Williams should probably get more playing time because he's looked more explosive than Gordon recently. I think that the Broncos can cover -3 at home. And people forget, like, Denver's a tough place to play for an opponent. Like, you get really tired late in the games there with the, the altitude and the oxygen difference. So if this game's close late, it's possible that Denver could pull away. So I'm gonna be on them here. I don't know if I'm gonna bet this one though, because both these teams have struggled of late. So not sure I want to trust the Broncos, but you could probably convince me to bet on this one if you really wanted me to.
Yeah, I love the line value we're getting with Denver. The advanced spread was -4.5. It's down to 3. So we're going through two key numbers, especially 3, which is the biggest one. I think it's a lot lower because people are looking at the box score and seeing that the Redskins outplayed the Packers. But the Packers, first of all, aren't as good as people think they are. And second, they were looking ahead to the Arizona game on Thursday night. So I don't think they were 100% invested in that game. So I think that game was misleading, even though the final score itself was misleading, which is kind of weird to say. But yeah, I love just getting Denver at -3 at home, where they're one of the few teams that has a legitimate home field advantage, as you said. They're getting Jerry Jeudy back in all likelihood, which is going to provide a boost to Teddy Bridgewater, who really hasn't played well since he got hurt against the Ravens in the first half. Like he was playing really well before that, and then he just hasn't been the same since. Like he's been missing receivers. It's kind of looked like he doesn't see stuff well in the pocket. But having Jeudy back, in addition to Sutton and Fant and Tim Patrick, that should be able to allow Bridgewater to get back on track, especially against this horrible secondary. So yeah, I like the Broncos quite a bit, and they've had more time to prepare for this game too. So the only thing I worry about with Denver is that they're missing their top 2 linebackers. So Gibson and McKissick and Ricky Seals-Jones should have nice matchups. So the Redskins should be able to move the ball. It's just a question will they be able to score in the red zone. So if they start scoring in the red zone this week, I'll be tilted. But I guess that's par for the course this year.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you Ricky Seals-Jones will have a bad game. He's on my fantasy team, so he's guaranteed to do terribly. I have had not even a lick of luck in that league, so you can expect a poor game from Ricky.
Joe Johnson asks, have the Redskins covered a spread this year yet? They have against the Falcons. That's it. They're 1-6 against the spread this year. They've been a complete money pit. And they should have covered last week, to be fair, but still, they've cost people a lot of money. And both of us, we thought their defense would be awesome this year, and they really haven't. Their secondary has been horrible. As Joe says, Chase Young has regressed this year. I feel like he's played better in recent weeks, but he still hasn't been the dominant force we thought he'd be either. Linebackers have been terrible too.
Yeah, he did not take the step forward. The defensive line in total has been good, but
yeah,
the William Jackson III acquisition has not panned out at all. He has looked terrible when he's played, and I don't know if that's a scheme problem, if he's injured, or if he just did the thing where he signed a big money contract and did not put forth the effort. But he's going to have to step it up once he's back from injury. Otherwise, that secondary's not going to get better.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but when I saw that he was going to be out last week, I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't care.
I've also had that feeling, and I've remember we debated William Jackson III on this podcast a while ago, and I remember I was like kind of lukewarm on the signing. You were like, he's going to be great, and I was like, but I liked Ronald Darby, and I'm sure Washington fans would give their right arm for Ronald Darby right now compared to how William Jackson's been playing.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, I can't believe he's been this bad.
It's been shocking.
Yeah. All right. Last of the late afternoon games, Buccaneers at the Saints. This line opened up Buccaneers -5. It's remained -5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Bucs here. I feel like the Saints were a little lucky to emerge with a win at Seattle, even despite the poor play of Geno Smith. There were a couple missed kicks in a very windy game. And the Saints just missed some opportunities in that game, I feel like. And I think that the Buccaneers are going to be motivated for this one because the Saints beat them twice in the regular season last year. I know they ultimately had the last laugh in the playoffs and knocked out Drew Brees, but I think the Bucs, they're coming off a big win over the Bears, and I think they're going to want to just beat the Saints here to create more of a gap between them and the NFC South title race, because that's the one thing Brady and the company did not do last year. They did not win the division. Brady had never made the playoffs as a wild card before, I believe. Or it had been it had been many years. It had been a time when I did not remember that he was a wild card team, perhaps. But it was so I think they're going to be motivated to win that. And I don't think that the Saints have the receiving weapons needed to take advantage of the one true weakness of the Buccaneers defense, their secondary. They're very thin at corner still. They keep losing players there. But like Marquez Callaway is good, but outside of him, they really do not have much. Traquan Smith came back from IR last week and promptly was unable to catch the first 2 passes thrown to him. And it just seems the team wants to go run heavy, which works against most teams, but Tampa is the best run defense in the league. They'll be able to bottle up Kamara a bit. He'll still do some damage out of the backfield, but I think we're getting the Buccaneers as less than a touchdown favorite, even in a road game in a tough environment. I think that they're going to be able to pull out the win in this one. I know it's hard to play at the Superdome, but I'm going to be on the Bucs. I'm not sure I'm going to bet this one. I got 0-1 penciled in. But you can feel free to tell me anything I might have missed in the Saints game last night if you disagree with me.
No, I don't disagree with you. I'm with the Buccaneers. I'm on the Buccaneers as well. It kind of stinks that we're losing some line value because Tampa was -4 before last week. Now they're -5 after that big win against Chicago. That still doesn't matter. I feel like this line's too low. I think it could be as high as -7, really. The Saints are 4-2, but they've been so lucky this year. Like against Seattle, they could have lost that game on Monday night. Against the Patriots, they had the 2 balls bounce off the receiver's hands and into their hands. They won by 2 touchdowns off those picks. And then week 1, they got the Packers, who weren't really focused in that game. So like if their record was 2-4 instead of 4-2 right now, the spread would be at least 7, like probably even higher. So I think in general, we are getting the Buccaneers at a good number. And the Buccaneers will be focused for this game because it's a divisional rivalry. If they lose to the Saints, they're only going to be a half game ahead of the Saints, and the Buccaneers are heading into a bye in week 9. So the Saints with a win could tie them. So the Buccaneers are not going to want to lose this game. Tom Brady is going to be focused for a divisional opponent, and he's probably going to get at least one of Antonio Brown or Robin Gronkowski back this week. So I think the Buccaneers are definitely on the right side. I like them for a couple units.
Okay, good. I'm glad because I was like torn on this one a little bit. I'm like, I like the line, and then in my head, I'm like, oh, but the Superdome's hard to play at. Every time I see the Superdome as the venue, I get skittish if I want the visitor. But yeah, the Bucs seemed like the right side. I thought that the line was a little lower than I anticipated. I was expecting a -6, so I was fine with -5.
Yeah, me too. I was expecting something higher. Parrot says it's a Jameis Winston revenge game. So maybe that means Winston's going to try to do more, which is not a good thing. Yeah. All right. Moving to the Sunday night game. So this line was Cowboys -2.5 earlier in the day, and now it's -3. So I think that makes it tougher to handicap this game. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I liked the Cowboys when it was at -2.5. I'll probably stick with them at -3. I'm not sure how much I'm going to bet on them yet, but the Cowboys have covered all 6 of their games against the spread. And usually we think good coaches with extra time to prepare are good off buys. That hasn't been the case for Mike Zimmer. He's 3-5 coming off bye weeks against the spread, so not great there. So there's no extra advantage with the Vikings coming off the bye. Like normally you'd be like, oh, Mike Zimmer would have an edge on Mike McCarthy here, but I don't necessarily think that's true. And I think the Cowboys offense has the weapons needed to stretch out this defense. Michael Gallup seems likely to come back this week too, so that should help out. The one thing I'm concerned about is Dak Prescott. We don't know what's going on with his calf. Like everyone says it's nothing to worry about and that he's fine during the bye week. I just want to see him practice or hear that he's doing well in practice. He injured the calf, for those that don't know, on the very last play of the game against the Patriots. Somehow got hurt. I don't exactly know, but so that's a little concerned, but I still like everything else about the Cowboys in this one. Kirk Cousins is bad in prime time. Kirk Cousins is 2-7 career against the Cowboys. I have a feeling that they're going to choke. They're just not as good a team as Dallas. So even as 3-point road favorites, I still like the Cowboys. I'm not going to bet this until we know more about Prescott. But I'm not a big enough fan of the Vikings either. Their team has too many holes, and I feel like Dallas can take advantage of them.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the Zimmer spread record after a bye, because I don't know if you've seen Mike McCarthy's record after a bye. It's 11-2 against the spread, which is it seems unreal. to me that he's that good. But then again, he's had Aaron Rodgers, so like maybe that played a factor into it. Although last year he obviously didn't. So that doesn't really play a factor into my selection here. I still like the Cowboys though. I just don't think the Vikings are that good. Like they've won some lucky games this year. Like they're 3-3. I realized they could have beaten Arizona in week 2 because they missed that field goal. But then again, they could have lost to the Panthers before their bye as well. So you kind of have to like wonder about that, like too. And against Seattle, like the Seahawks got really banged up in that game, and they kind of took over. Seahawks offensive line got really banged up. So yeah, I like Dallas. I'm not going to bet this game. This is one of the tougher games for me to decide. The Cowboys have gotten, I think metrics wise, they've been the luckiest team this year when it comes to turnovers. So I think that's going to regress at some point. You mentioned that they cover the spread every week. So that also is not going to continue. Eventually it's going to turn around. I just don't think it's going to happen this week. I trust Dallas more than Minnesota in this matchup. As you said, Kirk Cousins not good in these primetime games. So I'm on Dallas, but I think the most likely result of this game is Dallas winning by 3, and that's what the spread is. So that's why it was like hard for me to decide this. When it was -2.5, it was definitely better, but -3 kind of like I could see this really going either way. So I'm going to take Dallas, but I'm not going to bet this game.
Yeah, you're probably not betting this because you subconsciously remember the 2019 Sunday Night Football game between the Cowboys and Vikings, where we were both like, yeah, Kirk Cousins has been terrible in primetime against the Cowboys. He's not going to do it. He's not going to cover. And then the Vikings, of course, ended up winning that game, I believe. So, that was on my mind. So that's one of the reasons I'm not betting it. But yeah, I'm going to be on Dallas for office pool purposes, though. Why roll with something that's 6-0 until we get like a better matchup against them?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this line would have to be a lot higher. Yeah, I remember that game as well. It was a painful memory for sure. Before we get to the Monday night game, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the merch store. Like any one of those things would be awesome for helping the show out. So if you want to do that, please do. So the Monday night game is Giants at the Chiefs. This line opened up Chiefs -10. It's still -10. So who do you like Monday night?
I like the Chiefs here. I'm a little afraid of this one because 10-point spread, but usually betting a quarterback, like a really good quarterback, off an embarrassing loss is a good thing. I know that the Giants are a weird team. Like every time they're on Monday Night Football, I feel like they cover the spread. Like last year, I think they might have beaten Tom Brady outright or lost him by like 2. Right?
2, yeah.
Okay, yeah. They lost by 2 last year. And it was like a 12-point spread or something. We were like, oh my God, like this is brutal to watch. So like that's in the back of my mind. But Patrick Mahomes, like he knows he's been playing badly. He knows he's been pressing. And this is like a critical moment for the Chiefs. Again, they're under 500. They're 3-4. They're falling off the pace in the NFC West or AFC West. I'm having a bad day with remembering division names. But the Raiders are like 5-2, and they could have a chance to win after the bye. Like this is a chance to gain a half game on them. But if you lose a half game on them. So this is just an important spot for the Chiefs. And their next 3 games after this are against the Cowboys, Raiders, and Packers too. So like those teams aren't slouches. Like the Cowboys have proven to be a dynamic offense that can keep pace with any team this year. The Raiders are exceeding expectations and continue to. And then, both we've talked about this ad nauseum. The Packers are not quite as good as their record says, but they can still challenge the Chiefs. So, they don't have any gimme games coming up. And this one is one that they should undoubtedly win. Now, I don't know what the status of all of Daniel Jones's receiving weapons is going to be for this game. They were without 3 of their top 4 receivers last week. Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay, and Sterling Shepard. We'll need them to come. We'll need to know their statuses before we try to handicap how many points they should be getting. But I still think the Chiefs are good enough here for 1 unit bet. I think Mahomes is going to have a bounce back game. I know that Mahomes hasn't looked good, but he's still got talent. He's just trying to do too much. And I think that Andy Reid's going to figure out a way with that 1 extra day to prepare to just kind of spark this offense. So I'm going to be on the Chiefs for 1 unit. And if I'm wrong, I'm never betting against the Giants on Monday Night Football again.
I actually looked it up. In the past 5 years, the Giants are 4-3 against the spread on Monday night. So I don't know what those games are, but at least they have a winning record on Monday night covering the spread.
It feels worse than that. It feels worse.
Yeah, 1-6 straight up though, so it kind of goes with that 2-point loss to the Buccaneers. Still 4-3 against the spread. So Gateway Partners asks a good question. Would you say Mahomes is playing good enough to back him laying 10 points on a zero defense team? Um, like you would say no based on last week's result because they scored only 3 points and he got knocked out of the game. But coming off losses this year, so he lost to the Chargers, fine. But then the other two games in which he's coming off a loss, he beat the Eagles by 12 and he beat the Redskins by 18. Both those games were on the road, and this game's at home. And I feel like the Giants are in that pantheon of Eagles, Redskins. Like those teams feel like the same sort of caliber to me. I guess to answer his question, it really depends who he's playing against. Like if he's playing against a good team, you say no, but he's playing against the Giants, who are not a good team. The Giants, they might seem not that bad because they beat the Panthers 25-3, but in the two games before that, they lost to the Rams 38-11, and they lost to the Cowboys 44-20. So the Giants are not a good football team. The Chiefs should be able to win this, I think, pretty easily. Coming off a loss, as you said, betting great quarterbacks coming off a loss, especially off an embarrassing loss. Like this is the worst loss of Mahomes' career. Like losing that badly. I think he's going to bounce back. The Chiefs just can't afford to go to 3-5. Now, like maybe there's a chance that this team's just broken and they're never going to turn it around. But so far, coming off losses, they're 2-1 against the spread this year, and they've won, as I said, they've won two of those games by double digits. So I think they're going to win by double digits in this game. You made a good point, Andy Reid, coming off that extra day of rest. You give a great coach like that an extra day. I think he's going to make the most out of it. So I think the Chiefs definitely bounce back. I like them a lot this week.
Yeah, it just seems like such a good spot for Mahomes. And the way that he addressed like the media and the press conference, he basically said like it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies or whatever. That might actually just be a song lyric that I'm quoting. Oh God, that is a song. I can't remember who it's by. Anyway, he said something like that. And I just think that he knows like he's played badly, but he's got to snap out of it. Like I get that vibe from him. Like he said, last week's loss, it was probably on him. Like he knows he's taking the blame, so he's going to come out ready. I don't think he's going to press. I think he's just going to be more confident and just say, I got to play well. I'm going to do it and figure it out. So I have confidence in him. If he falls flat here, then we have to reassess the Chiefs officially. Like we know that there have been problems there, but that for the whole season, but if they fall flat against the Giants, then it's time to talk about what this team can do.
Yeah, I wrote this on the site that like the Chiefs remind me of like my picks this year, where like it like looks good on paper and then just never happens because like weird things. But before this year, it was really good. And it was funny because whenever the Chiefs have won just a game like straight up, I'm 3-2 or better in the super contest, and in weeks they've lost, I'm 2-3 or worse in the super contest. So kind of like mirrors each other. So I'm kind of rooting for the Chiefs to have a great second half and bounce back. So let's go to Survivor. So this is what you have so far. I'll let you study it for a second. So you've taken the Niners, Broncos, Cardinals, Bills, Patriots, Rams, and Buccaneers last week. So let me get to mine before you get to yours. I've gone Niners, Browns, Broncos, Bills, Vikings, Rams, Cardinals. I had a tough choice this week between the Bengals and the Chiefs. I think the Bills are the top option. I've chosen them already. So it came down to Cincinnati and Kansas City. And for me, I'm going Cincinnati just by hair. I think the Chiefs, you can use them later in the year against the Broncos at home, also against the Steelers at home. Like those are two good spots. The Bengals also play against the Steelers at home, but that's the divisional rivalry, and you never know how those are going to go. And plus, the Bengals are playing better than the Chiefs are right now. Now I know I just picked the Chiefs to cover a 10-point spread. So I love both those selections, but it was so close for me, and it just came down to like the schedule looking forward. So I'm taking the Bengals. So who do you like in Survivor?
Give me the team that is playing against either Mike White or Joe Flacco. I will also go with the Bengals. My choice, like yours, was between the Bengals and the Chiefs. I'm like slightly more scared of the Giants than I am of the Jets. Like, I don't think Mike White or Joe Flacco has any chance to beat the Bengals. Like, I could at least envision a world in which Daniel Jones beats the Chiefs and it's not the apocalypse. So I'll roll with the Bengals as well.
All right,
This will make up for the time that I bet like 5 units on the Jets to beat the Bengals 2 years ago. In one of your most confident picks, I was like, it's going to be the Jets, man. You're like, no, it's the Bengals. And yeah, we got to roll with the Bengals together.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so I like that we're on the same side there. So teaser this week, I didn't see any obvious sides, so I'm going to put like 2 question marks near my picks. So teaser right now, Colts plus 7.5 question mark, Panthers plus 8.5 question mark. So right now, I guess you could still take the Panthers at plus 9, but I like going through 3, 4, 6, and 7. So the Panthers right now, I'll probably take that off. I think the Panthers at plus 9 just fine. The other leg of that teaser is the Colts, and right now they would be plus 7 because they're plus 1. If you can get a plus 1.5 on the real line later in the week, and they're plus 7.5 on the teaser, then I really like this teaser. So that's what I'm going with this week.
Yeah, I love the idea of teasing the Colts through plus 7.5 because that game is almost certainly going to be a 1-possession game, and we both think the Colts win it outright. But even if they don't, you protect yourself in the teaser. So I think those 2 picks are great.
Yeah. All right. That is it for this week. Do you have any? Actually, real fast. We had a fantasy question that we can answer. So Eckler and Diggs for Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Hawkinson. He says he gets the Eckler side and Schultz is his backup. I don't know. I mean, I think this is. I think I'd rather have Eckler and Diggs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I probably would too. I had to stew over this in my mind for a second, but since Eckler and Kamara have both already had their buys and Diggs has also had his buy, I think that benefits you. So you won't have to worry about bye week replacements for Eckler and Diggs. You just worry about injuries there on out. So I think that's the best way to approach that.
Yeah, and like you just don't know what you're getting with Thomas when he comes back. Like he may not be healthy for a while. Like it could take him a couple of weeks to get back into it. I like, the more I think about this, the more I like the Eckler and Diggs side for sure. And one last question. What do you know how you feel about Rodgers 8-1 without Adams? So we kind of addressed that. It's so situational. Like you never know. And he's going to be without his number 2 receiver and possibly number 3 receiver this week as well. Playing against the best team or the team with the best record in the NFL. I'd have to see who he beat. Like you can't just like be like, oh, Rodgers 8-1, he's gonna be 9-1. I think you have to like look at who they play. Like maybe they played all crappy teams without Adams. Like I just don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing when you're like 49ers record with Jimmy Garoppolo and without it. Like they love to be like, they're so much better with Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's like, well, of course, you were starting Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard when he wasn't playing. So it's one of those things like it all depends on the matchup. And I think the Cardinals just have the advantage.
Yeah. All right. That is it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. I will tweet out my favorite picks every week. I'm maybe slightly below 500 3 straight weeks on these, but my Twitter picks have stayed above 500 this whole time. So I'll continue to hopefully hit on the big unit picks. You can check out sportingnews.com for everything you need for football and fantasy. We got great resources over there. Also doing a little bit of World Series coverage. So there'll be some stuff over there with my byline on it. But yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, I'll share as much of my work as I remember to. And yeah, if you have any football questions, just tweet my way and I'm happy to answer them.
Sounds good. I will not be doing World Series coverage because as we discussed before we started recording, I had no idea who was in the World Series. So you can follow me at walterfootball.com, not for baseball advice, but for you can follow me for fantasy football. We have our rankings, start sit. We have our mock draft. Our 2022 NFL mock draft is going to be updated tomorrow morning. I said there's going to be a round 3 soon. Not this week because I have so many meetings. Like I don't know why like they're all this week, but I think next week we're going to have a round 3, but definitely an update tomorrow morning. And then pick updates on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and obviously Monday for the Monday night game. So definitely check all that out. That is it for this week. So let's hope we get back on the winning track, and the Monday night game was a sign of things to come. So I will talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you then.